Anything you can be, I can be greater. Sooner or later, I'm greater than you.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
What's up, guys? Nuance Bro checking in, and today we're going to be talking about transgender athlete and superhero Lia Thomas. As I'm sure many of you have heard, Lia Thomas has been dominating in NCAA women's swimming recently. You've got articles like this from the Daily Mail talking about how this 22-year-old transgender University of Pennsylvania swimmer who used to compete as a man smashed 2 U.S. women's records in weekend competition and even finished one race 38 seconds ahead of her nearest competitor. That 38-second ahead win was in the 1650 freestyle. Thomas also beat the nearest competitor by 14 seconds in the 500 freestyle. Here's another one from CNN. Transgender swimmer Lia Thomas sets Ivy record in 200-yard freestyle at Ivy Championships. This is a race where Thomas beat the closest competitor by about 2.5 seconds. And the day before, Thomas beat the nearest competitor by about 7.5 seconds in the 500-yard freestyle. So why are we talking about this? Why is this such a big deal? Well, this is part of a pattern. This is something we've been seeing more and more often. We've been seeing these examples of more rates of people identifying as trans and them subsequently entering into women's spaces, whether it's sports, whether it's locker rooms, etc. But what's interesting about the sports aspect is that it makes the differences so visible. For so long, trans activists have been claiming that, oh, there's no difference. If you're a woman, you identify as a woman, that's a real woman. Trans women are women. And they always try to pull up all these studies and facts, so-called facts, not actually though. If you actually pay attention to the scientific literature and have eyeballs, you'll notice that there are real fundamental differences between biological males and females, even after they decide to supplement with hormone therapies or whatever you want to call them. And of course, interestingly enough, you never seem to find these trans men that seem to be dominating men's sports. You don't seem to find trans men who are setting world records or setting records in the respective competitions and things like that, them getting first place constantly. Doesn't seem to happen all that much, if ever. Unless you're talking about some obscure sport like power walking or something that doesn't really involve a lot of physical prowess, like, I don't know, shooting a shotgun or chess or something. But again, in the last week or so, Lia Thomas came up again because this individual had another competition where they dominated. The interesting thing to note is that virtually none of the other athletes have really voiced their opinions about how they feel about Lia Thomas and Lia Thomas's win. Some say the athletes are keeping quiet out of fear, maybe losing their spot on teams or scholarships or sponsorship opportunities in the future, etc. One athlete in particular actually did speak out. As you can see here from this New York Post article, NCAA swimmer wants rule change after missing out on finals to Lia Thomas. A Virginia Tech swimmer blasted the NCAA over its rule allowing transgender women to compete against biological women after she came up short in a championship qualifying race that was dominated by University of Pennsylvania transgender swimmer Lia Thomas. Rekha Georgi leveled the criticism in a post to her private Instagram account after missing the cut on Thursday to compete in the finals of the 500 free at the NCAA championships, Fox News reported. And here you can see the swimmer who spoke out, Rekha Georgi. And maybe the fears were justified because after speaking out, the Twitter account associated with her name was suspended. Now, was this actually her? I don't know. I don't have confirmation on this, but it is the account that had her picture, had the same username handle, was tweeting out about a lot of these things. Now, friend of the channel, Savannah Hernandez, actually was on the ground during some of these races and was speaking to people outside who were swimmers in some of these competitions or new people who were competing and teammates of theirs. And in this particular clip, you're going to see her interview someone who says that her teammate, presumably Georgi, the one we just talked about, who was suspended and all that stuff and lost her spot because of Lia Thomas, that she was in tears because of this.
It's a common conception that we are all very disappointed and frustrated with someone who is
has capabilities more than us women have to be able to compete at this level and take opportunities away from other women. Like, I have a teammate who did not make finals today because she was just bumped out of finals, and it's heartbreaking to see someone who went through puberty as a male and has the body of a male be able to absolutely blow away the competition, and you go into it with a mindset that you don't have a chance, if that makes sense. Like, it's hard to compete against someone with the aerobic capacity, the muscle development, the body of a man. It's hard to think about it like that, and staying positive, I bet, for other swimmers who are in that heat is probably overwhelming. I'm not sure, I can't speak for them, but it's disappointing to see and frustrating, definitely.
Now, although the vast majority of the female swimmers did not respond publicly to Lia Thomas smashing the competition, winning first place, etc., you could see in their actions how they felt about the situation. Here you can see a picture where some of the lower placing swimmers took a picture all together, all of them being biological women, and then Lia Thomas standing alone in first place. Now, while most of the competitors did clap when Thomas was announced the winner, fifth place Eva Pfeiffer did not appear to clap according to video. But let's talk about the advantages real quick, because look at Lia Thomas versus the other swimming competitors. This is one of the images that's been going viral recently. Now, granted, I will say that there is a podium height difference. Obviously, first place is higher up than second and third place, so it makes the height difference that much more drastic. And strangely enough, it's really hard to find actual stats about how tall Lia Thomas is. But in general, when you grow up as a boy and go through puberty as a male, you are going to have disproportionately higher hand size, foot size. In general, on average, you're going to be taller as well. These are all things that help you in swimming. These are things that are not reversed by suppressing testosterone, going through a transition, even surgically, which Lia Thomas has not done, still has the dingle. You can see this demonstrated in the stats for male Olympic champions in the 100-meter freestyle. You can see how the times have changed over time and how the heights have changed over time as well. And as we get into the modern age and times have gotten better and better and better, you start to see some stark differences in height. 1988, 6'7", 1992, 6'5.5", 1996, 6'5.5", 2000, 6'4", 2004, 6'4", 2008, 6'5", 2012, 6'6", 2016, 6'4", and 2021, 6'3". You literally have to go back almost 60 years before you find someone who's below 6 feet that was an Olympic champion in the 100-meter freestyle. Here you can see some graphs when it comes to height changes over time for Olympic freestyle winners, and there is obviously a pattern. And let's talk about the rules, because a lot of people aren't clear on what the guidelines are when it comes to allowing a trans person into the women's sports and things like that. There, especially swimming. I mean, there's this weird thing with the NCAA and then the actual swimming organization and them clashing as well. So let's take a look at that. So you have this organization, USA Swimming, and then you also have the NCAA. And here in this article, you can see the NCAA will not adopt USA Swimming's new transgender policy prior to the women's swimming and diving national championships next month, though there will be a testosterone restriction in place for trans women. Now, the NCAA set the testosterone threshold at 10 nanomoles per liter, which they say is in line with current International Olympic Committee threshold. USA Swimming, however, requires transgender women's serum to be less than 5 nanomoles per liter for a period of at least 36 months. For the NCAA, they only did 12 months. What this means is if they went with the USA Swimming standard, Lia Thomas would not be able to compete because Lia Thomas has not been on testosterone suppressing drugs for that 36-month period. Basically hasn't actually been medically or hormonally transitioning for at least 36 months, which is 3 years, but has done so for over 12 months, which is in keeping with the NCAA rules. Now, apparently, they're not even testing the testosterone levels for the transgender athletes. As you can see here from the New York Times, the organizing body in college sports said that implementing new testosterone testing rules in the middle of the season would be unfair to transgender athletes. They said that implementing new rules for testosterone testing in the middle of the season would be unfair to transgender athletes. The move is an about-face for the NCAA, the organizing body in college sports, which said last month that it would require testosterone testing for the first time and plan to adopt standards set by sports federations beginning with the Winter Championships, which are held in February and March. So apparently they're not even proactively monitoring the testosterone levels in these transgender athletes, even though they still have their appendages down there, the dick and balls, still there, still functional. So theoretically, they could just go, they say they're on the testosterone suppressing hormones, but then they say, you know what, maybe I'm not going to take them. Maybe I'm going to get that little natural testosterone testicular boost, and I'm going to destroy the competition. They're not actively monitoring this, apparently. And here's the other thing. 10 nanomoles per liter, which if you're not familiar with the measurements of this stuff, I prefer nanograms per deciliter. That's, I feel like nanomoles per liter, that's more of like a European thing, but nanograms per deciliter, that translates to about 280 to 300 nanograms per deciliter, which is actually the low normal range for a healthy male. That's about, 5 or 6 times higher than the upper range of healthy normal for women when it comes to testosterone. That's crazy. So here, I'll simplify it for you guys where it shows both the nanograms per deciliter and the nanomoles per liter. The high normal range for a healthy female when it comes to testosterone is 2.4 nanomoles per liter. They're allowing up to 10. That is more than 4 times higher than the upper range, the upper natural range for a female when it comes to testosterone levels. So the NCAA standards are already way too high for testosterone when it comes to females. And this is why USA Swimming cut that in half and tried to make it 5 nanomoles per liter. Now, I want to highlight another interview that Savannah did actually with another athlete who actually competed in a different sport. This was in track against a competitor by the name of June Eastwood.
You competed against transgender track and field athlete June Eastwood, correct?
Yes.
What was it like competing?
I personally competed against June in the DMR, so it was the distance medley relay, and we had different legs. And when I was waiting and I was cheering on my teammate, there were coaches on the sidelines, obviously, and they'll tell you sort of like, this is your cue, or like, this is where you're at, or come on, push it, go faster. And something that was really hard for me to hear was June's coach was on the sidelines telling June to slow down, as June was in first place. And so that was something that was a true sticking point for me in this whole situation, because I realized that this wasn't difficult for June. June had already competed at this level and faster before, and so even though they'd gone through this private hormone suppression therapy, it didn't seem as if it was really coming out as fair in any sense.
Now, I have to say, as soon as I saw that clip and I heard that comment about the coaches on the sidelines telling June, the transgender athlete, to slow down when they were in first place, it immediately reminded me of this clip from The Incredibles, which, if you know, is about a superhero movie. It's this about this family of superheroes. They have their son Dash, who's, his superpower is to be super fast. He can run really, really fast. And he's at his school's like track meet. And, at first he starts off kind of slow, but then sprints ahead. And then his parents are like, no, slow down, go fall back a little bit. And I just thought that was, it's just, reality mimicking art. So it seems like you have life imitating art, as so often happens to be the case. This is actually why I often refer to these trans athletes as superheroes, because when they enter these competitions, trans women in particular, enter these competitions with other women, and they're destroying records and making it look easy. And sometimes they literally have to hold themselves back. Otherwise, the domination would just be so overwhelming and obvious. It almost is like a superhero in The Incredibles, for example. they would be able to totally destroy everybody, but they hold themselves back just a little bit. You know, they make themselves lose just by a smidge, or they'll win but just by a smidge. And it's just comical. It's pretty crazy. I'm sure many of you have seen the South Park clip, for example, where the straight up jacked dude enters the strong woman competition and just dominates. And you see them at the podium where the guy's yelling like, "I'm the strongest, I'm the champion, I've destroyed all of you." And oh, what can you say? And I don't want to go down the list of the litany of other times this has happened. You've probably all seen the cases, like the Connecticut runners. Both of the first and second place were actually transgender women. But I do want to highlight something, because many of the people I see are coming at this from, oh, these poor women, oh, this is going to destroy women's sports, etc. And I have to be honest, I don't think most people watch women's sports. I don't watch women's sports. I'm sure most of you don't watch women's sports. This is the most attention I've ever paid to women's sports ever because of the trans issue. If anything, the trans issue is bringing more eyeballs and more attention to women's sports. And I understand this is unpleasant for the women competing. It can hurt them when it comes to scholarship opportunities, etc. But the main issue with this is not the sports aspect. Again, it's the general denial of reality when it comes to biology and just reality itself. We are claiming that because someone identifies or feels a certain way, that they are that thing. That trans women are women. You have to claim they're the exact same thing. I'm like, well, then why do we even have the trans qualifier then? Why do we even have the trans qualifier then ahead of woman if they are women? Why are we pretending like gender and sex have always been separate concepts, completely divorced from one another, which actually isn't the case? In fact, the FDA used to use the term gender instead of sex until 2011, when the definitions and things like that continued to be changed and used and saying, oh, gender and sex are actually different. So then they started using the word sex, because sex actually does matter when you're talking about prescribing medicine to people. And really, sometimes there needs to be a bit of a reality check. If people are advocating for abolishing the police, maybe sometimes you need a little bit of that in small pockets to get people to see the consequences of such policies. Sometimes you need communism to exist in order for people not to want to be communists, so they can see the consequences of those beliefs and actions. Sometimes you need transgender women in women's sports for people to realize why that's a ridiculous idea, if you're going to have sex-segregated sports at all. So in many ways, I think Lia Thomas, by giving it your all, going 100% every time, destroying the competition, you are doing a service to delusional people everywhere that think that none of this stuff matters, and you're doing a service to America and waking people up and really getting them to take a stance on this trans issue that is becoming a more prominent issue in our politics and in our society. So a salute to all the superheroes out there. Keep doing what you're doing. And that's the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Social media links are in the description box below, as well as merch. Support us at nuancebro.com/join, and I'll see you next time, bro.